All right. All right, I'm going to continue in this vein, a little bit of a different tack on this. But so let's just keep going here. So brief review, where are consumers looking for information, right? Where do they go to get information? I'm going to talk about antibiotic use claims on package now, and kind of a better solution that I've been involved with, at least in our view, that's in development. So the short answer to the first question, where do consumers look for information, is this is some work done by IFIC, which is a food research claim or a consumer research body in D.C. But the short answer is they look on package, okay, or at point of sale. They don't want to go to a website. They don't want to text anybody. They don't want to do a QSR. They really want it at point of sale on package. So that's our opportunity to get information to consumers. And so where this was a study that IFIC did on bioengineered labels. And they asked them, how would consumers prefer to receive required disclosure for BE? And it's too small for you to read, but it says symbol or visual representation on a food package or words on a food package. That's it. And then you see how it drops down into 7% for these other things. So it's pretty simple. We need to get to them kind of when they're picking it up and they're looking at it, right? And people have taken this to heart because they're trying to put a lot of information on package right now. Most of these are voluntary label claims about production practices. This is very confusing for consumers. They're normally proprietary process verified programs that are documented, and they're being sold as a value add, right? So, for example, a few of these packages say all vegetarian diet. So how's it better for me to buy chicken that was a vegetarian chicken? I mean, a vegan chicken. Is that better for me somehow? How did that even get on package or even a consideration, Chickens are omnivores. Chickens that are fed all vegetable diets have more intestinal upsets. They have wetter litter. They have more manure-burned feet. Okay? It's not a natural system. But yet, that's a value add in chicken. And the only reason that these work is because we're selling to an uninformed consumer. And most of these are absence labels. So an absence label implies that the attribute or content in the absence labeled package may be in the other package, okay, in the unlabeled package. Cage-free is the best example of this, probably. That's easiest to understand. You pick up a package of chicken and it says cage-free. And then the other package doesn't say cage-free, right? So that package is throwing the other package under the bus, right? Saying, well, they're in cages because they're no cages. But the fact is, in the United States anyway, no meat chickens are raised in cages. But people don't know the difference between egg-laying chickens and meat chickens, right? So, it's some of these claims, in my view, are purposely misleading. Some of them are perhaps innocently misleading. But again, the only reason they work is because we're really selling to an uninformed consumer. So I view animal production programs as a pendulum of consumer choice. Okay? And I'll just say this. Choice is good. Judgment is bad. Okay? So we've gone into the judging part. I think Leah said it, well, my food's better than your food kind of thing. And I think it's very damaging to animal agriculture. I am all for choice. I mean, honestly, if we want to raise chickens in this room and somebody will buy them for enough money, okay, it's fine. I don't care. It's totally fine. I don't know what the value proposition is for somebody, but there's probably somebody that would buy it. You know, I was at a meeting at Pew Charitable Trust one time, and I said that, and I know there's people who would buy chickens raised by Pew, you know. So in DC, so that's not such a crazy idea, really. But anyway, on one side of this, you have no antibiotics ever, which I call an example of an extreme program. So extreme programs have a lot of restrictions. They're usually pretty expensive. They're harder to scale. And then on the left, you have conventional programs, which in my view, there's nothing wrong with conventional programs, but I call a dated program, a little less accepted in the marketplace. And then in the middle, you got a responsible practices or a balanced program bucket that you really don't hear much about. And we have retail labels for the extreme programs, and then we got nothing for you, really, in any of the other kind of gradients of other options. So I think there's an opportunity in the responsible practices area that hasn't been addressed, and I do think gravity is a powerful force, but it seems like our pendulum's gotten stuck in the extreme bucket here for a while. So, and then one other thing briefly about certification strategies I want to make sure you understand is a package-based versus a systems-based approach. So a package-based approach is what I call a diversion program, and where no antibiotics ever is one of those. I talked about it this morning. It creates what I call second-class meat and poultry, right? So we start all the flocks off without any antibiotics, and if we got to treat a sick flock, then we got to put them in another supply stream, right, into another tier. So that's so if you buy, though, a package, NAE chicken, those chickens didn't get treated, okay? So that's truth in advertising, right? But it doesn't talk about maybe the 5%, 10%, 20% that did get treated that went into another stream, okay? A systems-based approach is a non-divergent program. So you raise animals all under the same rules, okay? Rules maybe about antibiotic use, rules around welfare, rules around vet care perhaps. And all of those animals that are raised under the same rules are eligible for the label. And and that creates a predictable supply chain for customers. It doesn't create that competing priority, right? We'll treat them or put them in the box, right? It takes that away. So it allows us to raise animals and to care for all the animals appropriately. And certified responsible antibiotic use is an example of that. We've talked about NAE. Again, it's a two-tier stream that creates that kind of competing priority. So in our view, we came up kind of with an idea for what we think is a better solution. And, this is a corny slide from the Field of Dreams that, the theme of this movie was, if you build it, they will come. And so we're kind of getting ready to find out pretty soon here. So we'll see if that's true or not. So the goal was to create an umbrella multi-protein animal standard that has meaning and value. And there's also an ancient saying that says perfect is the enemy of good. And if we wait around to create the perfect animal production standard, then we're not going to create a good one to get started. Okay? So, trying to be perfect kind of paralyzes you. And we knew we couldn't do it alone, so we sought like-minded partners. We formed a coalition, I call it. And it was technical experts from animal ag companies, nonprofits, and scientists. It was a volunteer group. Nobody was paid to do anything. And we just asked for technical experts to come together to help create some draft standards. We're starting in chicken, turkey, and pork, which are the three most vertically integrated industries. We wanted at least 10% of the animals raised in each bucket to be involved. It doesn't mean they're going to do it all or change all their practices, but we wanted them involved. And so we ended up with 15% of the chickens produced and 45% of the turkeys and 20% of the pork produced. We partnered with like-minded NGOs and scientists. I talked to all these government advisors, all these government agencies. And again, the government is not going to write programs, but they have good perspectives and input. One of the things in this program I'm going to share is that you track antibiotic use, right? So you got to measure your use. And so the FDA was helpful in ways to measure antibiotic use. There's a lot of ways to calculate that number, for example. And then I went on tour, basically. I met with all of our customers and many people who aren't our customers to get customer feedback from retailers, wholesalers, and restaurant chains. What if there was a program like this? What would you think about it? And the feedback was all positive. So this is what we came up with. It's a new comprehensive multi-protein program called One Health Certified. These are on-package, retail-approved logos for each of the different commodity groups. Now, to be fair, we're starting in chicken, turkey, and pork. Then we hope to expand to eggs, dairy, and beef to have a true umbrella standard over the protein supply chain. It's based in the principles, the core principles of One Health, that, animals, people, and the planet, the health of all of them are linked together. It's a systems-based certification, so we're not going to divert product, right? All of it will go in the box. This is an open certification available to any producer. So this is not a get-rich-quick private certification scheme. It's going to be open to anybody. It'll be audited by the USDA Ag Marketing Service as the compliance arm. The goal also, One Health is a continuous improvement program with regularly scheduled updates managed by an independent science-based host. It'll be composed of technical experts from these same multiple stakeholders that came together in a volunteer effort to get it started. And then food security is an important goal of this program. Is we're trying to create a certification standard for meat for all people, not just rich people. Okay, so we're trying to keep food affordable, but have meaningful programs. You can look at it as trying to transform conventional production and move it into an audited, transparent program that has continuous improvement. So what's in it? 5 main core principles. Disease prevention, okay, biosecurity, audited program. Vet care. This is becoming a very complex part of the program because it has to be auditable, right? So it contains action thresholds that when a group of animals crosses this line in health status, there are required actions that have to happen. Okay, there's an investigation, there's veterinary involvement. If a treatment's ordered, there's treatment outcome measurements. If they didn't get better, the vet gets re-involved. Okay, and all these things have to be documented and audited. And if you're trying to write rules around caring for animals, it's a little more complicated than you might think. It has responsible antibiotic use, and so what this program means by that there are restrictions on the use of antibiotics important in human medicine, and they're species-appropriate restrictions. They're not the same restrictions for a 6-week-old chicken and a 6-month-old market hog. Okay. But there are rules that have to be followed that are different from conventional. Animal welfare, we're going to reference existing third-party audited programs that are very established and science-based. And then where One Health is the first program to measure environmental impacts. So we're going to start with measuring the carbon footprint of the animal production system, and also audit wherever nutrient management or waste management programs. And then in the future versions, we'll set some benchmark reduction targets on the environmental piece of it. We're not trying to create another badge to put on those packages I showed you. Okay? So we've got co-labeling restrictions on this program. So you see a package here. It has a One Health logo, and it says no antibiotics ever, all vegetable diet, raised cage free. Okay, so we don't want One Health plus. You know, well, I'm One Health. Yeah, well, I'm One Health plus NAE. Well, I'm One Health plus cage free. No. Our goal is to take the misinformation off package and replace it with a symbol that represents a balanced program that addresses these important issues. So those things won't be allowed. It's pretty much going to be a One Health logo or pretty much nothing. It doesn't mean that an NAE producer can't be One Health certified. They probably won't, because they've got to treat their chickens way sooner than they are now. Plus, they can't co-label. So it really doesn't align with their business model. So we did some consumer research. So we're kind of wrapping messaging around antibiotic use in messaging around a holistic, responsible care program. And I think our findings are going to show that's has a good chance to be successful. So I'm going to share some focus group information and then an online survey results. So the focus group was three studies done in 3 cities in September 2017. There was 20 in each group. It was about 3 hours long. I watched it all on video. And all groups had very positive test reactions. So this is where this gentleman in this slide was talking about the program. He said, well, what if there was a new label called One Health that had biosecurity to keep disease out, had a vet care plan that required treatment for sick animals, that had restrictions on medically important antibiotics, had an animal welfare program, and had environmental measurements, and was all audited by the government. And you see how it tracked. It just went up and up and up and up. So it tested very, very, very well. And I remember the moderator asking the group, there's 20 people, and they said, all right, there's 2 ways to use antibiotics in agriculture. You know, one is never ever. So we're not going to use them. Who wants the never ever? So 3 people raise their hand. And he goes, all right. And the other way to use them is responsibly, where the animals that get sick, that need help, then they'll get medicated from a licensed veterinarian. So how many want that? So 17 people, raise their hand. So it comes down to education, right? It's easy to understand no antibiotics ever. It's a little harder to understand responsible animal care, which includes antibiotics when needed. But it's not that big of a lift. So the online consumer survey was 1,000 people done by IFIC about the end of last year. And so I asked IFIC to do this. I said, I want to compare conventional, NAE, and One Health. Straight up. Just how do they rank? What do people think about them? And, this was kind of scary, right, to find out how this is going to come back. So, but they had done a lot of meat research already, so they knew how to do this. So they had a list of things that consumers say they're concerned about when they buy meat. And then, so what you want a label to do is reduce concern about buying your product. That's really what you want a label to do. So on the left, the blue bars are what people are concerned about in conventional meat without a label. They're concerned about human health, animal health, farming, environment, antibiotics. If you put an NAE label on it, it reduces concerns in all these categories. surprisingly, actually, to me. If you put a One Health label on it, it reduces them even more. And so we think we're tracking in the right direction here. And then we asked them what they thought about the One Health program that has these 5 things in it, right? And so 8 out of 10 people want a multiple requirement program instead of a one attribute program. So if you say, like, wherever, do you want animal welfare or do you want a multi-point program? Do you want antibiotics use or do you want a multi-point program? They all want multi-point programs. Of the 5 things, biosecurity, vet care, animal welfare, antibiotic use, and environmental impacts, which of the 5 do they value the most? And vet care came to the top. People want animals cared for, and I don't think that's a big surprise, but it was pretty clear in this research. And also, half of the people want some rules around antibiotic use. Okay, so I think again we're kind of hitting in a good spot here, and then we did lastly we did a couple of willingness to pay questions, and if you show people the 5 things, so we call that a program description. When shown a program description, 83% of the 1,000 people said that they would buy that label, which is a pretty high number according to the IFIC people. Of that 83%, more than half would pay more for that product. And the amount they would pay is 11% more than they would pay for the no antibiotic ever label. So, I know this is one study, but consumers have said that they value this more than NAE. So I think we're on the right track. So in summary, I think we need to talk about antibiotic use in this way as part of a systems-based certification program where we can't create the second-class meat and poultry. That's not going to work. And the other thing we need to do, we need to talk about antibiotics as part of a holistic, responsible animal care program instead of a one-off attribute. And I think this is going to work, but the market's fickle. I don't know. We're going to find out. And thanks for listening.